Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. Today, I'm joined by Effie Ansah. Effie is currently playing Sephy in the UK tour of Noughts and Crosses. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
My name is Effie Ansah, and I play Sephy Hadley in the UK tour of Noughts and Crosses. Noughts and Crosses is a story, a love story about two young people who just desperately want to be together. Um, their budding friendship eventually turns into a romantic relationship, but the world in which they live in and the society in which they live in just doesn't allow them to be together. So it's like a modern day Romeo and Juliet. There's a lot of racial tension in the society as well, and that's what we kind of play on. And it's been adapted from Mallory Blackman's novel, Noughts and Crosses. So if you're familiar with that story, then you'll be familiar with our play.
Yes. And obviously, as you say, the kind of novel has been around for kind of 20 plus years now, but what kind of attracted you to the role?
Well, for me personally, growing up, I never saw anyone who looked like me in lead roles on stage. So the character Sephy is one that's like a dream come true for a young black girl.
Yeah.
She plays, she's this young girl who's just curious and naive, but full of so much love and hope and empathy, even in a world and a society that tells her to be otherwise. And she's complicated. And I feel like she's a really meaty character to get your teeth into, but she's also just such a lovable person with such good intentions. So I feel like this role is like such an ideal role for me anyway.
Yeah, and obviously, I know you're probably familiar with the book before you kind of got the role anyway. But then when you get the role, do you kind of go back to the source material and kind of refresh yourself on it?
Um, I didn't.
Yeah.
During the audition process, I did start reading it again, but then when I got the role, I stopped reading
Yeah.
because it is an adaptation from the novel. So, and the novel is lengthy, and we do have a set amount of time.
Yeah.
So, although we follow the storyline very closely, not everything is going to make it onto the stage from the novel. So it can sometimes be a little bit confusing if you're trying to read alongside. But I also have a few classmates that did, read the novel alongside being in rehearsals, etc. And it's good for background and wider research and knowledge. But it can also be a little bit confusing trying to remember, is that happening on stage or did that just happen in the novel?
Yeah, of course. This is obviously your kind of debut taking on a leading role. I know you've been doing it since last year, but then how have you kind of found that experience and how has it helped you grow as a performer?
Yeah, it's been incredible. It's my first time touring as well, so
Yeah.
it's a lot of firsts. There are a lot of challenges with touring, but also there's been just so many great opportunities to see so many parts of the country that I've never been to before. So right now we are in sunny but also very frosty
Yeah.
Manchester, Salford, Media City, and it's beautiful here. As well as that, taking on a leading role for the first time is, I feel the weight of it and the responsibility, but I'm also, standing side by side with James, who's incredible and who keeps me up. And I hope I also am able to keep him up too. And also supported by a brilliant ensemble cast that, we wouldn't be able to do any of it without each and every one of us. So it's definitely a group effort that keeps everything ticking over.
Yeah, and obviously you're both kind of making that kind of leading role debut. Is that kind of nice to have that kind of together supporting each other?
Definitely. I feel like from the jump, me and James had that in common because it
Yeah.
was both of our first times leading a show. The first week of rehearsals was really interesting because it was just me and James before the rest of the cast joined. So it gave us a chance to sort of bond and really delve deep into our characters as individuals and our characters together as well, and really strengthen that relationship between Callum and Sephy. And that definitely has enriched the play and enriched our experience as well, just as performers and as people.
And you've kind of touched on some of the themes of the play already, but what do you think it says to a audience in 2023?
Well, it's a big one. I think post the most recent wave of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and all the racial tensions that have been bubbling and brought to the surface on social media, this play takes on a whole new meaning. And I think for a generation that's coming up now, the great thing is that this play, Noughts and Crosses, is on the syllabus in schools. So we get a lot of young people in, a lot of school groups in. And so their generation is really at a point of I feel like, wanting desperate change and actively going out to seek it. So the play does explore the racial divide and the racial tensions. The story is sort of flipped on its head in the world of Noughts and Crosses. The Noughts are the white characters and the Crosses are the black characters, and the black characters are the ones who are the dominant in society. So it does give a spin on a world that we're probably a little bit more familiar with. But in the play, you can also see that even in this world, there are so many problems. And I hope that from that, young people will be able to start conversations about change and about the things in society that aren't working and what we can do to sort of fix that, or what we can do to start a change in that.
Yes, very true. And as you kind of touched on there, you kind of play into schools audiences as well, kind of, and students. Kind of how fulfilling for you is that as a young performer?
I mean, the school groups are great. They're great. You know they're in because they're very vocal. But that's good. It's good because it means they're listening. You know, if they're not responding, then they're not listening, and that's scary. So it's always a surprise to perform to school groups because you never really know how they're going to react, but you do know that they're going to have a reaction. And it's also really beautiful to see the moments that they are super quiet, and you can feel, you know, the fact that they're there with you, they're there with the characters, and they're almost holding their breath. So the great thing about young people is they're very honest. So if they're enjoying it, they'll let you know, but if they're not, they'll also let you know.
Yeah, very true. But then if you could flip this interview into speaking to Sephy herself, what question would you ask her?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think if I was to ask Sephy a question, I would ask her, what gives her her unwavering hope?
Yeah.
Because in the play, you see that she is in a world that her father is literally the head of oppression for the Noughts. So for her to, you know, go off and profess her love for a Nought and choose to stand by him and forsake her family and forsake her comfort, her comfortable life and the things that she has set up for her, for this person who she loves so much, despite the world telling her she shouldn't. And having hope that things can change, even though the world also tells her that it won't. I would love to know where that hope comes from. And I speculate as Effie, you know, playing the character, but it would be lovely to know where she really found that hope from.
Yeah, that's a very good question. But then if you could also adapt another book into a stage play, what would you choose to adapt?
Oh, that's another great question. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and say Noughts and Crosses is a series.
Yeah.
So I would like to see the next book adapted, because we leave the story, no spoilers, but we leave the story on an open end. And it, you know, as an audience member, you want to know what happens next. What happens to Sephy? What happens to the other characters? What happens to their story, their love story? This isn't the end. So I would love to see the next book on stage.
That is a great shout. Yeah. I ask these questions to everyone I interview. What was the first piece of theatre you saw in your life that had an impact on you?
Oh, okay. I probably have a couple, but one that stands out to me is Coriolanus at the Doma Warehouse.
Yeah.
I went to watch it with my drama group in school, and we were sat like on the front row. And I think that was either the first time or one of the first times I'd been to the West End to see anything. And it was just so mesmerizing. I remember they took us to watch something at the Globe, and like everyone was complaining because it was raining, we were standing, and it was just, you know, not the best experience for like a 14-year-old. No. But being like 16, 17 and getting to sit in a theatre and watch Tom Hiddleston as Coriolanus was incredible. There was a point where he was upside down, being like hung upside down, and there was blood, and the blood was like getting splattered on us on the front row. And I was like, wow, this is theatre. Like, it was just so incredible the way they used set and projection and all these other multimedias. I just thought, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen any theatre like this. So that really kind of ignited in me like a passion to want to see theatre that was bold and different and cross genres. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And then simply, what does theatre mean to you?
For me, theatre is like home, but also an escape. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's when I was really young, I always said like I wanted to be an actor, but I don't think that was the truth. I think I just always wanted to perform and make people laugh and entertain and bring joy. And I think spending so much time in theatre, most of my professional credits are in theatre.
Yeah.
I've just grown such a deep love for the craft and for the people that work in it. And I think there is so much to theatre that audience members don't even realise, you know, they just watch the performers on stage. But there are so many elements that come together and so many people behind the scenes, like a giant family, a giant network of people that feed into productions and that work so hard. And when you get the opportunity to work with people that also love the craft, it's like life-changing. And it has been for me anyway. So I'm very, very fortunate to be able to do what I love and work in an environment that I love. Because I know not everyone gets to do that.
No, of course. That's a great answer. My final question then for you is the probably easiest one of them all. Why should anyone out there book to see Noughts and Crosses?
Noughts and Crosses is one of those stories that just needs to be seen. And I can sit here and give you all those, you know, little anecdotes about it or describe the show to you, but it's something that you kind of just need to experience for yourself. I feel like you won't come and watch the show and leave without opening some kind of discussion or having something to say or reflect on. And so this show is one that's going to stir you and move you in some direction. And for that reason, I would say it's a good watch.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, thank you for your time today. It's been a joy to talk
Thank
to you.
you.
You can catch Effie in the UK tour of Noughts and Crosses, where it's visiting Coventry, Kingston, Brighton, Bath, Oxford, Oldham, Poole, and finishing in Curve and Leicester on the 1st of April. Link for tickets is in the description box.